Before the IB, Jerry was told all the time how difficult, how challenging, and how annoying Math HL would be. Because of this, he was actually scared and shocked into taking consistent action, and as a result, he ended up procrastinating and did not do well in his Math HL final. Bjorn, on the other hand, understood that Math HL is just like any other subject, and there are people who do get 7s. So he made the commitment that he would be one of those individuals. Despite initially thinking that it might be challenging, by staying consistent with simple disciplines, he ended up building himself into that high achieving student and then got that perfect 7 at the end of his IB diploma. So before I joined Math AAHL in the IB diploma, I was told by everybody that it would be insanely difficult, that it would be a struggle, that I wouldn't sleep, that I would procrastinate, that it would be a tough time. And I can say that after having gone through that entire process, I can testify that that is actually not the case. And there's much more nuance to that, which is what I'm going to be discussing in this video, what I thought Math HL was versus what it ended up being, as well as some tips and tricks that I learned throughout the entire process that helped me get a perfect 7 in Math HL and then a perfect 45 in the entire IB diploma. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Joaquin Rebello. I'm a current UPenn Wharton dual degree engineering student, and I make these videos to help other IB students like yourself succeed in the diploma. So this is what I learned after having gone through the entire Math HL process. And by the way, I did the analysis and approaches, so the AA Math HL. So my year actually was the first year with the Math AA curriculum. Before that, it was just Math HL and Math Furthers. So there was a lot of hiccups along the way of just trying to get used to the new curriculum. But I have to say one thing and one thing only about Math HL, that math, just in general, like the IB math is by far the easiest and most gameable subject in the entire IB diploma. And I would vouch that it's the most breakable subject, because when I first started off in the IB Math HL, I was actually getting 6s, and then I got a 4 on my proofs and combinatorics exam. And when I got that 4, that really shook up my world. And it made me realize that in order to really go from a 4 to hopefully a 5 or a 6 or even a 7, I had to do a completely different, not necessarily way in which I studied, but a completely different paradigm shift by which I approached studying for math. And that's actually where I outlined the strategies of how to break Math HL, where I outlined a few strategies that you can utilize right now to significantly increase your score on your next Math HL, so go check out that video. And the point I'm trying to make is, my opinion on Math HL is that it's difficult only if you don't know how to study correctly, or if you're not approaching it by the correct frame of mind. Because if you approach math by the simple, step-by-step proven system that I've been showing students and that I talk about all the time in the Grizzly Elite Training Academy, which by the way, you can join in the link down below, it becomes very, very easy to break. As in astonishingly easy. And that was my opinion on math before I started. I did not know the process. I did not know really what it was. I thought it was scarier than it were. And because of that, I did the wrong study strategies. I approached it wrongly. And it was only once I switched that perspective shift that I then started getting results. And I think this perspective that I had came a lot from my success in the World Scholars Cup, which was this academic competition I did in grade 10. So literally right before I started the IB diploma, I did the Scholars Cup and I ended up actually winning the competition. What's interesting about this is that the way in which I studied for the World Scholars Cup compared to the IB is actually very different, because in the Scholars Cup, you're not given a bunch of questions. You're only given a bunch of questions that you then need to explore and try to find the answer yourself. So you're not given any answers at all. Instead, you need to explore and find the answers. So that's what I was used to. I was used to not getting the answers. And then when I started implementing this way of studying into the Math HL, it put me at a severe disadvantage because I had all the answers available, but I just didn't use them as effectively as possible. All right, so what are the 3 steps? Real quick, the first step is to pre-study before you go into Math HL. Please make sure you understand the concept that is coming up. Then number 2, you want to pay attention in class. And then number 3, and this right here, the third point, is the differentiating factor, and the point I'm going to talk the most about for the rest of this video, which really just changed my opinion on math altogether. And this was really the most important paradigm shift that I really want to emphasize for those watching right here. For the third point, you want to do as many forms of active recall as humanly possible. The easiest form to do this is past paper questions. And I want to premise it by this perspective right here, all right? That most students, especially high school students, do not truly understand how much work is required to make something excellent. And this was really my opinion or my perspective shift that allowed me to go from a 4 to a 7. I went into Math HL severely underestimating the amount of work that I'd have to do. And by work, I don't mean hours spent working, all right? This is a big confusion I see between students. They're like, oh, if you say a lot of work, I need to spend a lot of time actually actually doing the studying. That is actually not true. I spent the exact same amount of time studying, but it was what I put into the time and the outcome I got out of the time that I spent working that really made the big difference here. So I'll say it again, most students have no idea and they dramatically underestimate the volume and the amount of work that is actually required, meaning the actual output that is required in order to become competent in mathematics, excel in it, and then ultimately build the skills that you need to get success in math and in all your other subjects. So how exactly do you measure this volume? Well, you do so by outputting as many past paper questions as humanly possible using the AHA method, which I talk about in my Break Math HL video, hopefully linked right here. What I want to add in this video was that my initial perspective of how many questions to do was maybe like 150 points of past paper questions, or just practice in general. I actually wasn't using past paper questions, I was using Snowflake questions, which was a big mistake. I should have done IB specific past paper questions. Nonetheless, I thought I could do maybe 100, 150 Snowflake type of math questions in order to prepare me for the math test that my professor gave. However, the biggest difference here was the quantity of volume that I actually had to do between what I initially thought and then what I realized was the amount. All right, and as I mentioned, I initially thought it was about 150. Turns out, and I did the math, that in the entire 2 years that I spent studying for the IB diploma, I did about 150,000 points of past paper questions, all right, in all the subjects, not only math, but in all the subjects, 150,000 points of past paper questions. All right, I'll say that again, 150,000 points of past paper questions. And if you look at it from that perspective, right, that I did 150,000 points of past paper questions, it doesn't seem remarkable at all. In fact, it seems pretty ordinary. In fact, it seems almost a simple stepping stone, a certainty of which that I will get that perfect score. And that's the entire point of this. You want to be studying to the point where you are nearly 100% certain you're going to get that correct mark. And that translates to about 3 to 4 hours every single day of doing past paper questions using the AHA method. All right, so that's basically what I did. I went on the question bank that you can find online or some IB questions somewhere, and I just did as many of those as I possibly could. And then once I did all of them, I did the entire question bank again. And I think I did the entire question bank twice, specifically for math, 2 or 3 times. There's a few questions that I did multiple times, like a lot of times. For instance, one of the induction questions, which was on the induction of a geometric sequence. I believe the sum of a geometric sequence, you want to find the induction of that. I did that question maybe 11 or 12 times, right? That question alone. So notice that I wasn't spending 8 hours every single day. I did not spend 16 hours. I did not pull a single all-nighter throughout my entire IB journey, right? I did not pull one all-nighter to study for an IB exam, not one. And I didn't spend any more than max 4 or 5 hours every single day. So it's not the amount of volume of time, but instead the consistency and the discipline where you really get that maximized output. Right? It's simple to do 3 to 4 hours every single day. All right, I would do maybe like an hour and a half in the morning, an hour or so on the way back, and then an hour and a half once I got back from home. All right, and then by about 6 o'clock, 6:30 p.m., I was done for the entire day, and I did no more IB work after about 6:30. And during that time, I either worked on one of my startups that I had at the time, spent time with my family, went to the gym. So what exactly is my opinion on Math HL? My opinion on Math HL is that it's breakable. It's one of the easiest subjects, but in order for these two to be valid, in order for you to break math, you need to be willing to put in consistent effort. All right, you don't need to sacrifice your soul. You don't need to do any of that type of not sleeping, all-nighters, none of that crap. All right, I'm telling you right now that you can have all the balance, all the extra time you want in your entire week, doing whatever you want. All right, myself, I spent all of Sunday skiing with my friends and family. And the reason why I was able to do that was because I was consistent by doing the fundamentals. All right, in this case, the fundamentals are active recall, and then doing that as much as possible. And by as much as possible, I challenge you actually to set a limit on the amount of hours that you work, but in those amount of hours, do as many questions as you possibly can. Do as many points of past paper questions, all right? And utilize the AHA method, which I mentioned before, but please check out the I Broke Math HL videos for that. But overall, my perspective is that Math HL is simple, it's breakable, you can definitely do it with the correct disciplines for a prolonged period of time, keeping those other tips in mind, all right, which includes active recall as much as possible. And the biggest thing I want to just break in your mind right now is write down the amount of questions you think you need to do, right? Then multiply by 50, meaning that if I write down, all right, I'm going to spend a few hours, I'm going to do 100 questions. Okay, I'm going to do 100 questions, or 100, maybe not questions, but points. So I'm going to do 100 points of the question bank in preparation for my math test next week. I want you to get that number. I want you to multiply by 50, meaning that if you wrote 100, you now have to do 5,000 points of past paper questions, all right? How would you approach those past paper questions differently? How would you do those questions? How fast would you do them? I found that a lot of the progress I made in math was just doing as many many questions as fast as possible, right? Because that builds your intuition. Now, there are times where you can slow down and take more time to actually think about the questions. But what I found is that if you just drill the same concept, and this is where the breakability of math comes in. A lot of the math concepts, such as taking a derivative or doing induction or any of this type of stuff, it's just a simple step-by-step process that you just implement to similar questions to then get the final result. So you just want to drill that as much as possible. And the way you drill that is by just doing as much as you humanly can as fast as possible to build that intuition of your brain, right? If I also show you 1 + 1, you instantly know what that is. You don't need to allocate the frontal lobe of your brain in order to find the answer. Instead, it just comes to you right away, right? That's the intuition at play. And just the faster you go, the more you tap into that intuition. And really, just the easier this entire game comes. The reason why I think the IB is gameable is because I look at it as a game. All right, I looked at it as a game from day one, right? From starting this out, I'm like, all right, this is not me trying to learn. This is not me trying to get grades or any of this type of stuff. This is a game, and I treated it as a video game. And there's a lot of things I actually did. I had my stopwatch method, which I still have right here. All right, and I tracked the amount of time I spent doing work. I did a lot of other extra stuff that I have on my channel. But the point is, when I gamified it, when I tried to really maximize that number, that's where I got a lot of success with Math HL, especially when it came to trying to break it. All right, so that was my opinion on Math HL, especially when I first started. I thought it was impossible. I thought it was difficult, etc. But once I realized that it was just like a simple combination, i.e. that 3-step process that I talked about with the AHA method, it's game over. It's GG. And I'm not the only one who's been utilizing this system and getting results. A lot of Grizzlies and Cubs have been utilizing the exact same system to get perfect scores or 7s on their Math HLs exams, or just math in general, or chemistry, or any of their other exams on the Grizzly Elite Training Academy. So if you haven't joined that already, go down below, apply. I check all the applications and then only accept those who are really determined, who are ambitious. And if you're watching this video right now, you're likely of that crowd. Fill in the application down below, and I'll see you at the Training Academy. If you have any questions at all, you can do so in the Discord in the Training Academy. So when you join, you can ask me any questions there, or you can leave them in the comment section down below. I do my best to respond. However, I can't guarantee it, but I'm more than happy to help. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, let me know. And until next time, stay grizzly. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.